The 2024 annual threat assessment of U.S. intelligence is warning the U.S. is facing, quote, an increasingly fragile global order this year. The report also says that, quote, ambitious but anxious China, a confrontational Russia, some regional powers such as Iran, and some more capable non-state actors are challenging long-standing rules of the international system as well as U.S. primacy within it. Joining me right now is Fox News senior strategic analyst and chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, General Jack Keane. And General, I know you're not surprised by this assessment. We've been talking about this leading up to it. But what is your takeaway of that intelligence assessment yesterday?
Well, I certainly agree with it. And, I mean, it underscores the fact that the United States is facing global security challenges on a scale we certainly haven't seen since the Cold War, and most likely, you know, since World War II. I mean, just look at the facts of it. Our adversaries are considerably more aggressive. Russia invaded Ukraine with the objective of expanding into NATO and trying to break the NATO alliance, which obviously would mean a major war in Europe. We got Iran, who's operationalized all of their proxies with two stated objectives: to drive the United States out of the Middle East region and to destroy the state of Israel. And they are about that every single day, and we don't even talk about Iran. And then we have China, who's obviously very aggressive, attempting to dominate the Indo-Pacific region, replace the United States as the world's global leader. How do we know that? Because they talk about it all the time. And also, all of these countries are undermining the civil society in the United States. China is conducting aggressive cyber espionage on a regular basis. Russia has huge influence operations that are ongoing as we speak, and Iran is stepping up their game as well. I mean, the United States is clearly under attack here in our homeland and also in all of our interests overseas. And where was a discussion of this in the State of the Union? This, after all, is the administration's intelligence services laying out a threat we haven't seen like this in decades. But the president discusses none of this in terms of the comprehensiveness of it and tell the American people, here's the problem we got, and here's what I intend to do about it. That discussion was not there. How sad is that?
It really was. And, of course, we talk about these worries every day. I mean, the fact that China is running a surveillance balloon across the United States with no fear whatsoever. I mean, I know they've been stealing intellectual property for decades, but the continuation of the fentanyl flowing in and the surveillance is just, they just don't have any fear of the United States. And in this world of fear and in this world of obvious, adversaries' aggression, look at this defense budget. I got to get your take on this, General. The president released his 2025 defense proposal yesterday. The Wall Street Journal is out slamming it. He says Biden offers a budget fantasy, is the op-ed from the Journal writing this. It proposes defense spending as if the world is at peace. The proposal for national defense would increase a mere 1% to $895 billion next fiscal year. And by the way, that number includes various and sundry Energy Department programs related to national security. So the Pentagon, when you just look at what the Pentagon gets, it's getting only $850 billion, which is actually, as we've discussed before, a cut in military spending, a cut in military muscle after inflation. General, your thoughts on a cut in military muscle after inflation in the face of all that you've just laid out?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's absolutely staggering when you understand the seriousness of what we're facing here, and then here comes the defense budget, which is absolutely inadequate. What we have seen in the past, when we dealt with the Cold War threats in the 80s, the defense budget, on average, was about 6% above inflation. That's about where we need to be. This is underwater when you consider a 1% increase and given what the inflation is out there. So we can't even catch up with a budget like that to where China is in terms of its advancement in every single platform they have is considerably advancing in numbers way beyond anything the United States can deal with. I've never said we have to go platform by platform with them, but we certainly have to have a credible capability that they look at and say, that's going to impose cost on us, and we don't want to do it. That is what we did with the Soviet Union for all those years and why the Cold War was successful. But it takes a percentage of GDP to be able to do that and demonstrate with capabilities our resolve. The budget doesn't match the threat that the president's own intelligence services have just described to us.
Yeah.
There's a huge mismatch there.